Ladies and gentlemen, we do thank you very much for your attention, and now we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Welcome to our top travel destinations. I am your host, Kevin Flanagan. I have been editor of the weekly travel news column in the Sunday Independent and the Fine Wine and Food Guide, and I am here to use my decades of experience to help you know exactly where to stay, eat, drink, shop, and explore when visiting the world's top travel destinations. So sit back and enjoy the wonders of travel as we take off on our magical journey together. Welcome to this week's Top Travel Destinations. I have a very special guest, Sarah Slattery, the travel expert, and the person who, what you don't know about travel is not worth knowing. Sarah is absolutely amazing, and she's been a very supportive colleague, and we've worked together on and off over the last couple of years. So you're really welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Kevin, and thanks for that lovely introduction.
Wow.
Not sure if it's deserved, but I'll take it anyway.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you one thing. Sarah is so well known on the radio waves, the Matt Cooper Show, Ed Finn, and it's a pleasure to have her here. And we're really going to pick her brains. And the one thing I've never liked and never really been attracted to in my travel adventures is cruising. And I'm going to ask the travel expert, Sarah, to convince me why I should take a cruise, because I think I suffer from some of the old chestnuts. It's for old people. You can't get off the boat. You're stuck there. It's environmentally hazardous and it's just boring.
Well, okay, well, maybe skip the environmental issues, but every other one of them, I would say, couldn't be further from the truth. Absolutely, I definitely 100% believe there's a cruise for everybody out there. And there's so much to offer now. In fact, finding cruises now, like they were in the old times where people dressed for dinner, they're few and far between. It's kind of gone the other way. You know, I've been on ships and people arrive to dinner in their shorts and T-shirts and only shorts are coming from the pool. So it's kind of gone the other way in a lot of instances now. So there's definitely no need to worry about that. And as for boring, besides the fact that in most cases, particularly the likes of a Mediterranean cruise, you can get off the ship 6 out of 7 days. You're usually only at sea one day. But on board, some of the large cruise ships now have so much entertainment on board for people of all ages. Family cruises and multi-generational cruises are, I suppose, the biggest difference in the last few years. And now you've got the brand new Royal Caribbean ship, Icon of the Seas. It has 6 water slides on board. It's the biggest water park at sea. You've got 8 different neighbourhoods. There's an actual resident golden retriever on board for the kids. It's unreal what they have there. 20,000 plants in Central Park. You feel like you're actually in Central Park. That's just one of the 8 neighbourhoods. There's so many different places to go on board that you couldn't possibly be bored, and you couldn't possibly even find them. You'd need at least a week, if not longer, to even explore everything on board and eat and everywhere and all the different food and all the different bars and restaurants and everything. So no, there's definitely no fear of boredom, and the stereotypical thing of cruising of old is completely gone. I mean, there are still probably 1 or 2 ships, like Cunard would still be very market, dress for dinner. Some ships would have maybe 1 or 2 formal nights in the week. But that formal night might be, a blazer and chinos and a nice dress, but not the black tie number. Those kind of days are pretty much gone, to be honest.
Okay, so where would you suggest I start off, or anybody listening to this podcast? And we do have 80 countries listening now, which is really so rewarding to know. Where would you suggest you start off? If you're of a certain age, you're mature, you don't have a family, how can we get going?
Well, the first thing I think you should do is talk to a cruise specialist, because if you go into a travel agency, you want to talk to the person who has cruised before and who has cruised in lots of different ships, because it's very difficult to pinpoint. A lot of people would say they tend to pigeonhole cruise lines. So they might say, oh, Royal Caribbean is only for families. That would be a typical comment I would get all the time. And yes, Royal Caribbean have incredible family ships with slides and all that I've just spoke about. But if you go to the Norwegian fjords on a smaller and older Royal Caribbean ship in May or September, there's going to be very few families on board, and it's going to be a much older clientele. So it's not just the cruise line you need to factor in. You need to factor in the destination, the itinerary, like Norwegian fjords versus Caribbean, Mexico, kind of itinerary. And you need to factor in the size of the ship. Norwegian Encore has a racetrack on board, like a full-blown racetrack. I literally drove the racetrack around. Insane. Laser tag arenas.
But now, that's very interesting because the two places you mentioned there, which is go to the north or go to the fjords or
Yeah.
even go up to the Aurora Borealis and look at the ice or go down to the Caribbean, I'd be torn. How do I decide which one to pick?
Yeah, well, I suppose time of year as well is a big factor, depending on what weather you want. And one thing about cruising is the return. Like it's something like 90 odd %. Once people cruise, they cruise again. It's incredible. Yeah, it really is. So you'd be pretty much sure if you try one, you'll probably be back trying another cruise the following year. But yeah, the other thing to factor in now, because again, what I spoke about at the beginning, of a lot of the ships are geared towards multi-generational families now. And that if you go in July, August in the Med, or you go on spring break. I did spring break in the Caribbean with my kids and it wasn't pretty. It was absolutely wall to wall with kids. And I have kids. You know what I mean? If you're like to go without kids during spring break in the States would be madness in my opinion. And July and August, if you pick a very family-focused cruise ship in the Med, there can be loads of kids as well. So, you know, you need to kind of factor all these things in. And it might be, I know sometimes when I start talking like this, I'm nearly putting them off because there is so much to consider. And that's where a really good cruise specialist comes in, a good cruise travel agency, one that has cruised and can actually say to you, I wouldn't go there in July, I'd go here. And also ask you other questions, whether you're kind of a foodie, whether you want really good food on board. Ask yourself, what kind of holidays do you like? Do you like a little boutique hotel where you don't really want to see anyone, talk to anyone, you want a small little pool? Or do you want an all-inclusive resort where there's like pool games and entertainment all night and, you know, non-stop action? So it's the same thing applies to cruises.
So would that be a good rule of thumb for me to say, well, I like this, so then talk to the travel expert,
Exactly.
and then they will be able to, or a travel agent, or
Absolutely.
would that be in person or online or reading reviews? Where do you source? There's so many cruises available. Where do you even start?
I mean, there are lots online. I have lots of lovely guides on my own website if anybody wants to check them out.
Absolutely do,
But
yes.
usually, I suppose, the old style way was to go into a travel agent, but there's no reason why you can't call them. A lot of them have online chat. A lot of them now you can submit an inquiry online and someone will get back to you. So there's lots of different ways, a lot of things to factor in. I know the brand new, I haven't been on them before, Virgin Voyages, as in Richard Branson. He has adult-only cruises, only adults. It's bar, drinks, everything is inclusive. So you're not paying extra for a fancy restaurant. There's so much included in the cost. To throw another completely different element into it, you've got these expedition ships that go to the Galapagos. You've got river cruise ships that are much smaller. They get right into the port. They're like maybe 100 people, 150 people to stop in. Like you can do Christmas market cruises. And so I can guarantee you, Kevin, there's definitely a cruise that you would like out there. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm starting to be convinced. And also, it's very important. We will put all the details on the toptraveldestinations.com of Sarah's website, where you will get a wealth of information and some fantastic deals that you can avail of. So that will be included in our fact sheet following this. I find that it's really good to try to get out of Ireland in January. And I've usually gone on one of two really great expeditions, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand. Would it be, and that really gives you a lift for the rest of the year, could it be that you could actually use that period when it's post-Christmas blues to take a cruise? And if so, where to?
Yeah, I'd say definitely the Caribbean. Once the kids are back in school, that's where you get the good value as well. There's usually 2 or 3 different itineraries. So you can do the Bahamas, Grand Cayman and Mexico. It might be one itinerary, so you'd stop. It's not like the Med. The Med is great for people who want to, I should have said this earlier, who want to kind of see as many places as possible. Usually with the Mediterranean, a 7-day cruise, you can get off 6 out of 7 days. So you can get off the ship and explore if you don't want to feel you're on board. Whereas with the Caribbean, you may only have 3 or 4 stops. It'd be more at sea days.
And when you get off, are you allowed to do your own thing? I mean, usually ports are not in the best part of town. What sort of length of time would you have to explore the likes of Rome, say, if you docked in Rome, or Rio de Janeiro? How does that work? And are you left to your own devices?
It really depends. You can really do what you want. First thing is, you don't have to get off. So sometimes it can be nice, maybe even one of the days, to stay on board. If the ship is really, really quiet, you can nice, relaxed pool day while everybody's off the ship. Usually be deals in the spa, for instance, because half the people are gone. That's when you get the discounts. But if you get off, you can either pre-book an excursion or you can just get off and wander on your own. I've done both. I recommend both. Sometimes excursions can be expensive. So I would say in a 7-day cruise, maybe book 2, maybe 3, depending on the prices. Others you can get off and explore on your own. I would be wary of booking excursions outside the cruise companies, because if you get lost, the ship won't wait for you. So it's different if you get off and you're wandering around the port. But if you get off and you book your own excursion and you're gone and there's a problem or traffic and you miss it, if you're booked on a ship excursion, they will wait for you.
Do you know of cases where people are left behind?
Absolutely, yeah. You hear about it regularly. People think they're saving €50 by not taking the ship excursion and they get left. Rome is a prime example. Because with Rome, now some ports like Nice, you literally dock in Nice and you get off and just wander around. Marseille is another one. You're probably 10 minutes from the centre. There's a shuttle bus provided. You in and off you go. We wandered around Marseille on our own. It was great. Rome, Civitavecchia is where the ship actually docks. Would it be maybe an hour from the centre of Rome? There's a train service, but it's dicey to go in and do that on your own and get back. It's not as relaxed. You're worried you won't make it back in time. So things like that, I would say book the ship excursion. Another time, if there's somewhere you really, really wanted to do, one of the best we did when I was on a Princess cruise. I really, really like Princess. It's a kind of a nice blend. I think you'd like Princess, Kevin, too. Not too over the top, not in your face, like non-stop kind of pool games, none of that, but really good food and still nice atmosphere, nice entertainment. I just kind of like the vibe. But we did a cruise to the Cinque Terre. We did an excursion to the Cinque Terre and it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Now, I can't remember how much it was. Maybe it was €200 for a full day. Absolutely 100% worth it. And it was really, really well done. So if there's somewhere you really wanted to see, I'd say definitely pre-book the excursion.
And for those who may not know what the Cinque Terre is, would you fill us in on that?
Yeah, it's 5 different lands in Italy. I think the province is called Liguria. It's 5 little tiny hilltop villages. You can get to them from the sea or by train. In fact, you really can't drive. So that's the other reason why we never really saw them properly before, because if you're hiring a car, it's impossible. Actually, an excursion is probably the best way to do it, or on the train, hop on, hop off and explore on your own. But they're absolutely stunning. The kind of scenes people would probably know, Positano maybe more, that kind of image with the tumbling down villages on the side of the cliffs, but they're spectacular. One of the highlights excursions I've done on a cruise anyway.
What would be some of the cabins recommendations that you try? Because I know it's a big deal if you're going to actually get a view onto the sea. Well, how does that work? Because it can get quite pricey. What would you recommend, again, for someone who's starting off? Do they need a sea view, a balcony?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, it depends on the itinerary. I would personally think if you're in the Med, for instance, and you're off 6 out of 7 days, but you may not have that much time on your balcony. But also maybe factor in the cruise line. I was on Sun Princess there recently and there was always loads of space at the pool. It was never an issue. I've been on other cruise ships where I won't name them, but trying to find a sun lounger now was next to impossible. So you really needed your balcony if you wanted somewhere quiet to relax. So places like the Caribbean, where you maybe only have 3 stops, you're a lot more days at sea, you want those Caribbean views during the day. If you have sea days, a balcony is great. If you're in port a lot, it's not necessary. Obviously, if you have money to spend, go for it.
Yes.
I say some ships you'd need them more than others.
And this idea of catching a plane and going all the way, for you, it's not a big deal. It wouldn't be a big deal for myself or a newbie to cruising to get on a long haul flight to get to somewhere like Florida or to get to a distant port to pick up your cruise. That's okay. That's part of the deal.
Yeah, that's really part of it. I mean, there are lots of cruises that go from Southampton. But, I don't know, those choppy waters going across never appealed to me, to be honest. I always would rather leave from somewhere a little bit calmer seas. Another thing that I know you're a fan of Asia, some of the value from going from Singapore and Hong Kong is incredible. They've flights and 7-day cruise, and you'll stop in places like, you might go to Japan, for instance, or places that you may never get a chance to go to. And they're really, really good. Another place where there's always really good value is cruises from LA. And there's really cheap flights to LA now from Dublin. I know you've got international listeners here, but the cheap flights with Aer Lingus, direct flights to LA, and you can get a cruise down to Mexico. It can actually be cheaper than doing a Med cruise.
So that's very interesting. And to find out about those sort of Asian cruises, because Japan is really on my bucket list now.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a really good way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great value. You've got all this amazing food included on board, so you don't need to worry about Other than drinks, which you can buy a drinks package, I would recommend you do that if you like your drinks. But, everything is included. So if you decide to book an excursion or you decide to go to a specialty dining restaurant, yeah, you can pay extra for that. But you don't have to. You can take your cruise, enjoy your entertainment, enjoy the complimentary options. Usually, a lot of the packages now, you'll get your tips included, you'll get things included. So it can be actually a very economical way to see a destination.
So when you are booking, would I book a drinks package or you have the option to pay as you go?
Yeah, you can do either. And it depends on how much you like your drinks. But usually in the sunshine, cocktails, and then you have wine with dinner. It adds up. I've always thought pre-booking the drinks packages are great. A cruise line like Princess, they'll have a package where they'll include drinks and Wi-Fi and 1 or 2 specialty dining meals in the week and your tips. So it'll be bundled in to one package.
Okay.
I think it's like €53 a day, but that's on 15 drinks, Wi-Fi, tips, everything included. So I think it's good value.
This is brilliant, brilliant, right? But no wonder Sarah is called the travel expert. I can see that. It's really, really clear. Japan there's been something about Japan since the Oppenheimer movie and the whole thing of Hiroshima. You're a fan of Japan.
Yeah, I've never been, but it's on my bucket list
It's
as
on
well.
as well. And I'm going to definitely go and start looking and seeing if there are any options that would cruise around there.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I saw a deal the other day now. I can try and have a look for it. But one thing about cruise that I actually love is that, A, you go to places you may never have gone or seen before or thought about going to. Marseille was one for me. I've always heard negative things about Marseille. It was never somewhere that I would ever had planned or wanted to visit. But it was actually a great spot. The Cinque Terre, I absolutely loved it. And now I want to go back and spend a week there. So it gives you a taste for a destination. People say, oh, you see nothing in 8 hours or whatever. I get that all the time. But you see enough to decide whether you like it and want to go back or whether actually I don't need to spend €500 going there because I've seen it and I don't like it.
Yes.
So it's actually a really good taster. And that's what it's all about, I think.
And I really like that idea. You can go up to the Arctic Circle. You can go to the Galapagos.
Yeah.
You can go on these sort of adventure. It may not be the level of luxury, but still you are going to see some really kick-ass destinations.
And river cruises as well. We tend to forget about those, but there's some really great river cruises. I love the Christmas markets one that they have usually each year. So you might stop in Vienna, Budapest. And the great thing about river cruises is you actually dock right in the city. There's none of this tendering or miles out with a big ship. You've got the small ship that can dock right in the city. So you can literally hop off and you're in the centre of town. Like Amsterdam, you're right in the centre of it. So you can go to these places and spend a day and go, actually, you know what? No, I wasn't mad about the Budapest markets. I prefer the Vienna markets. Next year, I'd like to book 3 nights in Vienna. It's a really good, it's like a recce almost, I suppose.
Okay. You have nearly persuaded me. Now I'm starting to get the juices are flowing. I would like to conclude with asking you about your best and your worst things about cruising for yourself. What really ticks the box and what sort of grates the nerves?
Well, the great things, I think, is the fact that you can see so many places in one trip. I just love that, exploring new places. I think as a travel journalist or a travel writer, whatever I want to call myself, that's just a given, just to be able to see new places that you would never have seen before. I love as well the fact that it's a great thing, particularly when you're going with kids. It feels so safe. So, for instance, when I was cruising recently, I got off in Palma and the kids didn't get off. Like they were stayed on the ship. You don't have to worry about them. They don't have to traipse everywhere with you. You're in this environment where they can go off and do their own thing. They can arrive back at their cabin. You can do your own thing. And you're not wondering where they are. You're not worried about them. I love that part of it as well. What I don't like is overcrowded pool areas. That's when the kind of claustrophobia kicks in. I have seen that a few places. I would tend to go on a lot of ships more, not actually cruising them for a week long, but go on them for 2 or 3 nights and see them. And I've seen some absolutely tiny pool areas. There might only be a third of the regular number on the ship. And I'm like, what would this be like if it's full? I also did one in the Caribbean and it was absolutely mobbed. It would put me off. Now, obviously, if you have your little balcony cabin and you can go and enjoy that. And then when you're docking in ports, you won't have that. So you'll only have that. I don't want to put people off here. You'll only have those crazy pool days on the sea days. And that's only if you pick a ship that has that. Like there's other ships that don't have that issue at all. A lot of the luxury ships wouldn't have any of that. Another ship that I never even mentioned was Celebrity Beyond or Celebrity Cruises. Their ships are incredible. Absolutely loved that. One of my favourite cruise experiences. So there's lots of ships that you don't have that crowding issue. This is where I suppose it's important to talk to somebody who can recommend the right ship for you. To say, well, actually, that's a great ship, but in July there's loads of kids, or, you know.
Okay. So I'm going to now give my verdict on Sarah. Has she convinced me to go on a cruise or not? And the answer is yes.
Great.
I'm going to. Well done. All her details, all Sarah and the travel expert and the website will be on our fact sheet. And thank you so much, Sarah. That was absolutely
Thanks, Gavin.
brilliant.
You're very welcome.